Welcome to part 2 of our two-part discussion. The National Council of Teachers of Mathematics welcomes you to Adding It All Up, a podcast created by and for mathematics educators and teachers. Join us each month as we explore current topics, insights, and emerging trends with thought leaders in the math community. And now, the hosts of Adding It All Up, NCTM President Latrenda Knighten and NCTM President-elect Dewey Gottlieb.
You've given us a lot of advice, really just about that perseverance and building that identity and that confidence in ourselves and in students who we support. And one of the things we all appreciate is your message consistently that math is not just something that's there with us all the time, but it can be fun and it can be accessible. But thinking back to just your prior response, let's think about our students who we're hoping to heal from their math trauma and just rediscover the joy in math. And I say rediscover because we all know that very, very young children, before they usually even enter school, they do a lot of things that are very mathematical, just innately. So, what are strategies you use to help students maybe heal from their trauma and rediscover that joy that they probably forgot from their toddler years? How do you help them do that?
Yeah, I love that. So I'm going to answer this question, but I want to quickly say, because I heard the words coming out of my mouth after I said them, I want to make sure everyone knows too that when I say I want everyone to believe that anything's possible and that they can go after their dreams and all of that, I'm not saying that in some woo-woo way of like, we can all do literally anything in the world. There are no obstacles. There are obstacles. There's oppression. There are things that stand in our way. There are things that some of us face that others don't. And those are very real things. And I think the thing with math, the thing that I want to emphasize here is we all have control over some things. And I want us to feel empowered enough to take control over those things without the fear of failure. Moving on. I just had to do that PSA in there. Okay. Yeah. And I don't want to get canceled on the NCTM podcast. And I also don't want a toxic positivity life. It's positive, but also let's be real. Okay. There's a lot of hope in dark places. Some strategies. So you know what? Honestly, I want to circle back to the very first thing you guys said when we started the podcast. And you were talking about when people say, I'm not a math person, right? And Latrenda, you were like, yeah, I would just be like, okay, cool, let's move on. We've dealt with this. And then you started being like, oh my God, a lot of people are saying this. I have found that one of the most powerful strategies we can use is when a student expresses that they're not a math person, or you see a sign of math anxiety, or they express that they don't like math. One of the most powerful first things we can do, and everyone can do this, is simply ask them the question, just out of curiosity, have you ever had a negative experience with math? Because the thing is, student and people, we all get locked into this idea of, I'm not a math person. I hate math. I've always hated math. And often when you ask that question, a student's eyes will kind of be like, well, I don't know, yeah, there was, and all of a sudden some story will come out. Okay. And it's not only useful for you as the educator to know what the story is, because normally that helps you be like, ooh, they had a really bad experience being cold called in a classroom. Okay. I can avoid that. But for the student, it helps them start seeing this is a story about a thing that happened to me. It's not a story about my identity and who I am as a person, right? There's this huge separation. And often you could be like, did you always hate math? And they'll be like, oh, it's fine. And then grade 3 came along. You've got this incredible juicy opening to be like, all right, hold on a second. So you weren't born hating math. Something happened. And now when we've separated the experience from who they are as a person, that there's space for healing. Right? Because it's not like you need to change your whole self. This thing happened. And also, as a teacher, one of the best things you could do is be like, that sucks. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Because often they haven't been validated. They haven't even unpacked the story with anyone. I've just heard over and over again that this is so eye-opening, and I can feel the power when I do it. So that's one of the first things I would do is just ask. And also, students want to be seen and heard. It's so much better, I think, for us as teachers to ask instead of tell. Ask them. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you were talking about the idea of bringing joy back, because at one point they were joyful about math. We all know toddlers know that they want 3 cookies instead of 2 cookies. They're doing math. They've got to figure it out. How do we bring that joy back? And I've seen so much incredible work out there from people doing this. Just experienced Pam's Problem Strings for the third time, Pam Harris's, and just been wowed at the way she's helping students use knowledge they already know in order to solve problems, in order to build strategies to solve more complex problems. Peter Liljedahl's work with building thinking classrooms, one of the reasons that works so well is because we're putting the power in the hands of the students, right? The answer is no longer the goal. We're letting them explore. We're asking them questions. We're letting them collaborate and work together. Young people are social creatures, right? So we have this collaboration. We have this emphasis on thinking. We have the pressure off of the right answer. We have like allowing them come to their own strategies and to have their own aha moments and feel really intelligent. The idea of making mistakes really, really fun, not the enemy, but activities like, what is my favorite mistake? What is your favorite mistake you did today? Let's do a show and tell with all of the cool mistakes we've seen this week. Like these things, we talk a lot about joy and curiosity and wonder. And I think those as umbrella like topics are all really great. And I think we probably all have different strategies and ideas of how to get those things going, but there are so many of them. There's no one right way. But I would say if you're emphasizing those things in your practice, if kids are engaging, if you're emphasizing curiosity over answer getting, if you're making it safe to make mistakes, if there's collaboration happening, that's a really good start to making math feel more fun. But I do think it starts with acknowledging that we all have complicated emotions around math. Like if you still use Facebook, our relationships are complicated. Most of us. Kids need to know they're not alone. They need to know that you once felt that way. They need to know that you still sometimes feel that way. And they need to have moments to be like, oh my gosh, I just came up with that or just saw it this new way. Those are the things that make math fun. There's so many things, but the other good thing is like, I think teachers should know, like, you're probably doing a ton of these things. So give yourself a high five right now for being like, oh, I was doing this because I thought it would just improve engagement and maybe my scores. Cool. Awesome. Guess what you're also doing? You're helping kids rebuild their relationship with math. So go through your teaching practice and what you did in class this week and label all the times when you saw joy in a student's eyes, when you created that moment, when you replaced a negative math memory with a positive one. Every time you do that, you're bringing a student closer to freedom and further away from the fear they've held onto. Every time you replace a negative memory with a positive one.
Thank you for sharing all those ideas. And I know you said you could go on forever. So let's continue. Let's go on a little further. And so I was thinking about our listeners who are falling in love with your message today. Someone might be thinking, if I was a high school math teacher myself, and I'm thinking, okay, I love this. What do I do now? How do I take these ideas and turn this into kind of tangible, actionable steps? So maybe there's something for what advice would you give to a teacher who might not know where to start? What are some small shifts maybe they can make in their classroom to create a more safe, supportive environment? Or maybe it's some ideas about how to just open up the conversation. For somebody who does want to take some of these ideas that you're sharing and this philosophy and start doing it in their classroom, where would you suggest they start?
Okay, so my book has 65 pages of activities you can use, but I want to be wary of not like talking about some whole activity here for people listening. Here's what I want to say. There are activities you can do that are a bit longer. For example, having kids actually write out their math stories so you can see their math history and how they're speaking about themselves. I really think that one of the first things we need to do is know what's going on in the classroom. Like you can't solve the problem if you don't know what it is, right? #math, So when somebody says I'm not a math person, we really don't know what they mean. What does that mean? Does it mean they don't think they're fast? Does it mean they don't think they're good at mental math? Does it mean they don't look like the type of math person they think they're supposed to look like? So it's actually really nice to have kids do something like write me your math story or make me a graph with the x-axis, different grades, and on the y-axis, how you felt about math on a scale from 1 to 10. Label that point with what was going on during that year, during that grade, and how you felt. It's nice to see what's going on, what histories our students are bringing in. Now, oh my God, I just started this by being like, but I don't want to go into a whole activity. And like now I'm talking about a whole activity. But my point is that there are some longer activities like that you can do that I have. But I think what I'd like to say is, I know we're all strapped for time and we have like a million things going on. If a teacher was like, how do I start this? Like, what can I do tomorrow? There are so many smaller shifts you can make pretty much instantly, like things you can do tomorrow without printing out a worksheet or doing a whole thing that you can just do. And I actually just recorded on my own podcast, Math Therapy, called 5 Ways to Bring Math Therapy into the Classroom. It's not called that. It's called something like that. And I was talking about 5 shifts you can just make starting tomorrow. Now, as I'm talking, I'm hoping that as I speak, I'll remember what those shifts are, but it's not actually happening and they're not coming into my mind. So I'm I'm just going to ad lib some of the things you could literally do starting tomorrow. Okay, here we go. No, I remember 2 of them. Here are some of the things you can do. The first thing I want you to do is to simply pay attention to your language. Our language really honestly does create our reality for ourselves and from those around us. We innocently, and I've done this so many times, use words that often imply things that we're not intending. So for example, when we say something like, hey guys, we're about to start a new unit. It's super easy. No one worry. We're trying to instill confidence in the learner. But what happens is the kid who doesn't think is easy now thinks that they're really not okay. They think they're really stupid, quite frankly, because they're like, oh my God, this was supposed to be easy. Same thing with saying like, we're about to start a unit. Most people find this really, really hard. Again, we're trying to be helpful. We're trying to be protective. But I think one thing I'd love everyone to do this week is to just really pay attention to the words you're using. You don't need to make a change right away. Pay attention to the words you're using and start thinking, what kind of impact might these words have on my students? And is that the impact I want them to have? Because a language shift is something you can do, right? You can start, instead of saying this unit's going to be super easy, you can say, hey guys, we're about to start a new unit. Really curious to hear what you guys think about this one. Like I've gotten such mixed responses from people. You know what I mean? Like there are ways we can just change that. And our language is so powerful. Again, something as innocent as saying to a student, don't worry that you got a bad mark on this test. We all have other strengths. We're well-meaning. We're trying to help that student feel better. But the message might be that that student is like, oh, I have other strengths. So my teacher thinks that this is not my strength. As opposed to saying something like, you got a bad mark on the test. Don't worry about it. Grades aren't everything. I really love how you thought about this. I really love how you, whatever. So I would just say the first thing is really start paying attention to your language. Take a little inventory of things you say frequently over the week. Make a little list, write them all down every time you say something, or maybe it's something you say often, a saying you have. And at the end of the week, take a look at it and be like, how might this be coming across? And is this how I intended it to? And if not, how can I swap it? I actually have a section in my book of language swaps you can make that are just more growth mindset oriented, that kind of thing. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and I say this because I know a lot of teachers do this, but a lot of teachers responded to this episode I put out being like, oh my God, I never thought about this. I interviewed a grade 11 student for my podcast, and she told me that the biggest game changer for her, she was doing horribly in math. She's never been a quote unquote good math student. And she said, and then I had this teacher, and this teacher, when they were talking to me and helping me, they would pull up a chair next to me. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she was like, yeah, instead of standing over me, they pulled up a chair next to me. Sometimes they would crouch down next to me. And this is a student. This isn't someone who's read building thinking classrooms. She doesn't know what we're talking about in math ed. And she was like, it changed everything. I felt so much safer. I felt like she actually saw me as a person. And I was like, this is something we can all just start doing tomorrow. There, done. Never stand over a kid again, ever. You're finished. You're already doing something. And the other thing is, it's progress over perfection. We're not looking for you to become a 100% math therapist tomorrow. It's just, what are the little shifts you can make to start helping students who might feel anxious about math feel a bit safer, feel a bit more open. And honestly, the third thing I'm going to throw out here, share your story. There is so much research on leadership and how vulnerability is the biggest superpower you can have as a leader. When you share your vulnerability, when you share, hey, you know what? I'm up here and I got to tell you guys, I'm always scared I'm going to make a mistake in front of you guys. Or somebody shows you a way to do a problem that you've never anticipated. And sometimes as teachers, we freeze up and we're like, I don't know even what you're doing. Can you just do it my way? It's such a great opportunity to be like, I'm not doubting you right now. I think you actually might have come up with something I've never thought of before. And I'm feeling kind of insecure as the teacher here. But this is such a good reminder that knowledge and expertise and proficiency is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing that there's always more to learn. And you're modeling that for your students. You're showing you're vulnerable and you're showing them it's okay when you don't know everything. That actually is power. That actually is knowledge. So there are 3 things you can do. Number 1, inventory of your language. I'd actually really like to see it. This is a good moment to post something on Instagram, DM one of us. You can DM me at the Math Guru. You can DM Latrenda's on Instagram. She just followed me last week. Send us your inventory and let's look at the language and see what's happening there. Number 2, get on eye level every time you talk to a student. And number 3, share a vulnerable story. Let your students know that math anxiety is not a weakness. It's actually your superpower. It means you're empathetic. It means you understand math learning in an emotional way. And it means that you've had a negative experience with math. And that really sucks. And you're still here. You're still showing up as a teacher. You're still showing up as a student. That is strength.
Thank you for all that. I absolutely love it. And you're just making me think about my own experience. And I remember, not to make this all about me, but
No, tell us. Make it about you. I've been talking way too much.
like when I was teaching, and I remember we're the math teacher, we know the textbook, we possess all the knowledge that we're trying to get students to learn. And they see us as the expert to some degree. When I was teaching trig, and my students who were finding it super challenging, and I was just like, hey, I was in the same boat with you. I went through the same challenge that you went through. And so you're absolutely right. So for them to see that, oh, okay, yeah, my teacher didn't always know all of this. They didn't breeze through it. It was a challenge for them. And then I remember saying, I may seem like I know everything, but I'm no smarter than any of you. I just have more experience. So I love that you're sharing this idea, or encouraging folks to kind of share their own personal stories with their students.
Yeah, I really like what you just said. That's a really good one because that is growth mindset too, right? Like the idea of like, I wasn't just born smarter. I've been practicing for longer. I've been doing it for longer.
That's what I usually tell my kids. I'm older. I've been around. I've been doing this for a lot longer than you.
I got battle scars.
This has been a wonderful episode. I am having so much fun just listening to the things that you both have shared as we've talked about a really important topic. A lot of the things that we focused on today have been about the classroom because that is important. We've talked about ways for teachers to recognize math trauma, ways teachers can support their students. But realistically, there may be some students out there who are listening to this podcast because as mom or dad or whoever their caregiver is driving in the car, they're listening. Some students are listening. So, what advice would you give to a student who feels like they'll never be good at math or they want to find out what are some things I can do maybe to help change my outlook or my opinion about myself as a mathematician?
Okay, well, first of all, if you're a student, oh my God, hi. So glad you're here. This is so exciting. Way to go for listening to a math education podcast. It's been about 45 minutes and you're doing great. Now, honestly, here's what I want you to do if you're a student who's listening. Actually, this goes for anyone, but I'm going to direct this specifically to you. I want you to right now, when you say you're not good at math, I want you to define for me what you mean. What does that mean? What does it mean to be good at math? I'm actually very curious what your definition is. I want you to write it out. Does being good at math mean you're fast? Does it mean you always get the right answer? Does it mean you can do mental math faster than everyone else? Like I'm just making up some things that I used to think being good at math was. So I want you to write those all down. Then I want you to go to ChatGPT and say, I don't feel like I'm fast at math. Does that mean that I'm bad at math? I can't do mental math faster than my friends. Does that mean that I'm bad at math? Okay, I want you to do that. Okay, oh my God, now as I'm saying this, I'm like, ChatGPT, better get it together here. But they will get it together because I promise you all of those are myths you have learned about what it means to be good at math. And ChatGPT, very knowledgeable, is going to surf the entire internet for all the information. And it's going to let you know that just because you're not super fast or you can't memorize things, that does not mean you're bad at math. So I want you to prove this to yourself. I want you to type in the reasons you think you're bad at math and ask ChatGPT if those reasons mean you're bad at math. The other thing I want you to do is for the next 24 hours, I want you to examine every single thing you're doing and ask yourself, is what I'm doing maybe a little bit mathy? Did you just break up a fight with your friends? Were you the person that like helped them figure out their differences and make up? Did you just coordinate a great outfit that completely matches? Did you spot a new trend or pattern on Instagram and you're like, oh my God, it's so crazy that Crocs are back in style. Everyone's wearing them. Did you figure out directions somewhere with or without Google Maps? Did you figure out that you could actually maybe afford a Starbucks pumpkin spice latte today if you did this, that, and the other thing? If you think something might be mathy, I want you to write it down. And then I'm sorry, but I'd like you to go to ChatGPT or anyone. Go to a friend, go to a parent, go to a teacher friend. But honestly, if you need to, go to ChatGPT. This is not promotion for ChatGPT. I have a very complicated relationship with it. I hate it. I love it, whatever. But I want you to say, is this thing mathy? Is there any math I'm doing when I planned my outfit today? This is exactly what I did. And you don't have to do this. You can also just think for yourself. Was I spotting a pattern? That's math. Was I calculating finances or anything to do with money? That's math. Was I solving a problem between my friends? That's math. Was I spotting a trend? That's math. Was I using spatial awareness to figure out how to get from point A to point B? That's math. And I want you to look at how much math you're already doing. Just because it wasn't in the textbook doesn't mean that it was math. And I will arguably say, and maybe this is why I'll finally get canceled on the podcast, that probably the math you're doing is more important than the math in the textbook that you can't do right now. Oh God, Latrenda's like, you are going to get canceled.
No, not at all. Not at all.
We're not about textbooks.
We're with you.
I was going to say, when people say they're bad at math, what they actually are not saying, but usually mean is, I'm bad at school math. So it's really important to be like, just because you're not being tested on you figuring out how to afford a Starbucks drink, it doesn't mean you're not doing something mathy just because someone hasn't given you a grade for it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we don't take advantage of the opportunities to show students and sometimes adults all of the things you do in your complicated life every day that are related to math. And those are the things that we need to understand to be successful in our professions. So if we make those connections, then they see, oh, it's not just what was within the confines of 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. in this math block in this book.
But you know what? We can start doing that. And I know a lot of teachers are. I know a lot of people are. And I think it's just hard, right? Try to teach all of this content. And then it's like, okay, I can't make 4,000 word problems up that are specifically about what every single student is going through. But I think it's just, like you said, it's the acknowledgement of it. It's taking a moment to just point it out and be like, oh my God, you're wearing a ton of friendship bracelets. How did you know how many beads to buy? How did you even measure this? How did you know what size to make those? That's math. And here's how. It's like those little moments that really make a difference.
A lot of what you've been sharing today gives me hope. There's a lot of things going on in math because the teachers are working really hard. They're overwhelmed. They have a lot to get through, and a lot of the challenges that teachers are facing in today's classroom, it can be overwhelming and exhausting for teachers. But I think the message that you're providing gives some hope for the vision of the experiences that we can provide for students. So just wanted to ask you, what gives you hope when it comes to thinking about how we can help students deal with this notion of math trauma?
That's such a beautiful question. What gives me hope, I think, is literally working with our students and watching them discover what they're truly capable of, watching them change those relationships. And not just our students, but everyone around us. Every time we have a conversation where we both walk away learning something, I think learning to me is the greatest sign of hope. I learn at least one new thing every day. And I think every time I learn something or somebody learns something as a result of a conversation we've had together, watching the process of learning is the most hopeful thing because it is literally growth mindset in action. I can almost see someone's brain changing or feel my own brain changing. I know that's not how it works, but you know what I mean? Learning is hope. Being open to learn is hope. And working with so many incredible students and knowing people who are open to just changing their minds about things, that's hope.
You've compelled us. You provide a compelling message. And you alluded to this a little bit earlier. You're a unique presence in this traditional discipline of mathematics, particularly in mathematics education. And I can understand, you talked about this a little earlier, how people are going to question your intent or your credibility, because I think a lot of what you're sharing and encouraging people to think about, it challenges the status quo of how we've always tried to put students in a box of what learning math is supposed to be. Your voice is needed. It's appreciated. So I thank you so much, not just for today's conversation, but all the work that you do. It's refreshing. So thank you.
That is so nice. And I feel the same way about both of you. And honestly, thank you for making the time and space and platform to have this conversation. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure so many others do as well.
Time flies when you're having fun, right? So thank you. Thank our listeners for joining us on this episode of Adding It All Up. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, wherever your favorite platform is for podcasting. And please share with your math community. Keep this conversation going. As Vanessa said, find us on social media. Talk to all of us. You can find us all there. And don't forget to tune in next month for another exciting episode. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Adding It All Up. At NCTM, we strive to bring you the biggest topics happening in mathematics. Join us next month for another exciting discussion.